Hello, welcome to the Crypto Morning News. Hope you all are doing real well. NVIDIA and AI steal the show yet again, this time in front of the FOMC decision on Wednesday, tomorrow. That'll be coming around 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is usually when that decision drops. But NVIDIA has gotten a big green light from the Trump administration, which has granted them the ability to sell their H200 chips to the Chinese, right, to China. Now, China has obviously been getting quite a bit of high-level compute. Maybe some of them are even H200 chips through back channels and through having offshore purchasers kind of funnel those chips to China. However, now it looks like the Trump administration is going to allow NVIDIA to formally sell those chips to China, the highest level chips. So that's something that I think that they probably should have done for a while. But, this is a crypto investment and trading channel. We don't really talk too much about AI. So I will leave the AI specific speculation to someone else. But the reason that I bring it up, the reason why I think it's important, and the reason why it's the title of the sentiment outlook today is because the attention has been diverted to AI stocks. And that has kind of been the theme of the second half of 2025. And it doesn't look like that's going to slow anytime soon. So that's really something to keep in mind here as we get into the end of the year and open up Q1 of 2026. Is AI going to slow down? Is there a pathway for crypto, for alts specifically, to be able to push higher while AI just continues to be shiny, be sexy, be interesting, and be attention keeping? I think there is eventually a catalyst for crypto, which is the Clarity Act. Will force attention of investors into the altcoin space for tokenization, stable coins, and Bitcoin. So that'll be a pretty guaranteed moment of uplift and attention for crypto. However, you also have the debasement trade later on once the quantitative easing comes in, and that brings us to our Federal Reserve decision day week, and tomorrow is that big day. So let's keep moving here. In our President Trump says immediate rate cuts is a requirement for the next Fed chair. So that's kind of interesting. That definitely raises some questions about Fed independence and things like that. But that is what Donald Trump chose to say today, and that really should steer folks, towards thinking that we're going to the Fed rate decision percentage for a cut in December is currently 95%. So high level of certainty that we get a cut tomorrow, right? But the real question now is, what do they do next? Do they announce a quantitative easing schedule, meaning a bond buying schedule that hasn't been kind of explained to the market yet? There's been some hinting of that already. What do they do? How direct are they? Are they hawkish or dovish? That's really what folks are going to be wondering about. And you guys can tune in tomorrow. 1:50 will be live covering the FOMC stream. So, in other news, Michael Saylor says large U.S. banks are now allowing clients to borrow on their Bitcoin. Very, very interesting. Just a next big step for adoption. PNC Banks taps Coinbase to offer direct Bitcoin trading to its private banking clients. Very, very bullish. Circle is launching a new stablecoin on the Aleo blockchain. I've never heard of that one. Let me know if you've heard of that one. Designed to provide banking level privacy. So, privacy for the big banks. I wonder how that translates to XRP and XRPL's role over the long term. If Circle is kind of getting ahead and showing that it's interested in the privacy blockchain transaction market. BlackRock filed an application with the SEC to launch a staked Ethereum ETF. That was yesterday's news, but we didn't cover it because it came out closer to the end of the market close. That's very bullish, right? I mean, it continues BlackRock to double down on momentum for Ethereum and that's good. Tau nears first ever halving around the 14th of December. That's pretty cool for Tau, for the BitTensor community. I have some Tau, haven't sold, so that's good. Coinbase reopens in India after a 2-year hiatus. That's going to be pretty good for Coinbase, I would say. Very good for Coinbase stock. There is quite a bit of people in India for sure. Look ahead, December 10th, FOMC decision. That's tomorrow. And Asia markets were mixed. I've got a couple of things that I want to show you all here, kind of some extracurriculars, but that is the majority of the news. Let's see if there's much tweeted out. Tim just tweeted out this cool ETH over Bitcoin chart. Is looking bullish for Ethereum. The rounding bottom positioning atop the 50-day moving average and multiple open closes above the last daily lower high maybe signal that ETH is on the launch pad. If you guys want more insights into what ETH might do next, go and join our Discord group, or just if you're already in the Discord group, jump into VIP trading and ask about whatever you want to know about. We've got some excellent advanced level traders in there that can help you all parse through whatever question you might have. We talked about all of this ADP data. Private employers added 4,750 jobs, up from the last week's print of negative 13,500. Will the Fed still cut? Because after all, this is actually a favorable print for the labor market. I do think that they will still cut regardless. We also had a print not just a few minutes ago at the start of this stream. That would be the JOLTS job openings. Okay, so the previous for September, well, we'll start with October. The October print came in 7,067 job openings, and the previous was 765, so it's made an improvement, and the forecast was 7, as you can see there. So this is bad for cuts. However, as you can see, the spread has not changed as a result. And we've had, 8 minutes for this spread to move back down, and it hasn't. And then the job openings for September, so that was October. The job openings for September, let's see if this is about the same. Yeah, it beat on the forecast, and it also beat the previous. So favorable, things moving favorably in the job market. Now, I want to show you all a tweet here from Jordy Vischer, one of the analysts that I like to track. He points out something quite heady. So stick with me. It's very bullish for Bitcoin. The stock market is giving a warning that Bitcoin is about to rally. Boy, don't we all love hearing that. Pure volatility, which is beta, versus pure profitability, which is quality, fell hard as Bitcoin fell from 115 to 80. Now beta versus quality has ripped back to the highs in 10 of the last 11 days, while Bitcoin is trying to gain its footing. Pure volatility over quality correlated to PMIs over time, higher Bitcoin to come. So that's his conclusion. That's Jordy's conclusion, is that higher Bitcoin is to come. Now, let's look at this chart, and then I'll explain to you a little bit more of like what he's actually saying here if you don't know what volatility versus quality is. So as you can see here, the white line is the volatility over quality ratio. Okay, so white line, pure vol over quality, and then the yellow line is just Bitcoin, essentially, Bitcoin movement. So when we talk about beta versus quality, what we're talking about, so beta means how volatile is it versus the NASDAQ, essentially, right? So a company like Robinhood or Palantir might be quite a bit more volatile versus the NASDAQ. And so that would fall into the beta category, high beta. Whereas quality, you might think of names like ExxonMobil or Pfizer, right? That are well in profit. Nobody's questioning if they're making a profit, and they're spinning off a dividend, right? So that doesn't always have to put out a dividend to be quality, but essentially, if you take the high beta stocks and make the quality the denominator, you get this ratio, you get this kind of movement, and you can see over time when high beta outperforms quality. And as you can see, there's definitely been an outperformance, but then there's been a pullback recently. There's been a pullback, and now And then that pullback now has resolved in a much bigger and violent move back to the upside in a V-shaped recovery where beta wins back. You can kind of see this well illustrated in Palantir and Robinhood stock price, as well as many others, right? There's many other high beta plays out there. Okay, so these dynamics essentially create a little bit of a hint to the market. Hey, we had a big sell-off in high beta. Markets rotated into quality, into like ExxonMobil, safe plays, and now we're seeing that reversal. We're seeing in the stock market, and we're seeing Bitcoin potentially show that it's going to go ahead and make that move too. Now, you might say, well, what's the correlation over time? If you zoom out, I'll take myself off here so you guys can see. This is a pretty, I wouldn't say it's a super tight correlation, but this is pretty correlative, right? And again, you may be a little bit lost on what exactly beta over quality is. That's okay. You don't need to understand that to trade and invest in crypto. But I'm here to tell you what Jordy Vischer is pointing out is, it's definitely the door opening for Bitcoin to move quite a bit higher into the end of the year. Okay, good stuff there. One thing I want to bring to your attention is that our new newsletter is put out here by Stephen Mesa. Rate cuts are keeping the bulls' hopes and dreams alive, as well as covering Ethereum and AVAX moving forward. What is going to happen with these two? I know AVAX has some ETF chatter right now, so that might be kind of the main topics there. Let's look at the charts as we wrap up here. I'm going to do a short one today. See how that goes for you all. Look at the charts. Looks good. It looks really good here for Bitcoin. I mean, as you can see here, we've had this movement down as Jordy Vischer's post kind of showed us. We've had this big move as money rotated kind of out of risk perceived assets and into quality, such as gold and ExxonMobil and different safe plays like that. However, it seems to be bottomed out, right? And so there's a lot of chatter in the crypto community. Has crypto bottomed? Bitcoin looks like that, and Total 3 doesn't look very different. It doesn't look a whole lot different. And Total 3 is a little bit more sideways here in these I'm on the weekly chart, by the way. But the big thing that I've been pointing out here on the morning news channel is these histograms are starting to move quite favorably. So this is Total 3. And you can see that this week we will see our first descending histogram that would be signaling that the bearish momentum is waning. Bearish momentum may be peaked, right? So that's pretty good. Back over to Bitcoin. You can see something similar, although we've had already our first waning histogram here on the MACD, right? You can see this one was shorter than this one. And now this one, the current live weekly candlestick is quite descended. So that's what we want to see. And then obviously we're getting a reversal delta here from the neuro wave from flow signals, quite bullish as well. All right. I like it. I'm continuing to buy, not a whole lot. I'm kind of nibbling at names like Solana, Ethereum, Bitcoin, right? Trying to stay up the risk curve because I'm remaining defensive, because although I'm liking what I'm seeing on the zoomed out weekly charts here with this histogram, there's still a chance that we go back down, right? And we break this uptrending level of support. I wouldn't want to see that, but it's possible. And by the way, we have wicked lower already. So there is a chance that we just keep going down. Now, I think that right around in here, there's a buy wall, right? And so price right now is kind of exploring, hey, all right, if we're not going to be able to push through the buy wall, where can we go? Can we go explore and kind of venture out, maybe get back above 100 before the end of the year? I think that's probably what we'll see, a run up to 100 at some point. Whether it's going to be before the end of the year or come a little bit after it, I don't know. But that's what I'm seeing on the charts. Last thing I want to show you before we sign off here is the inflows. Let's do our inflows analysis here. over on sosovalue.com, you just go over to ETFs here, and you can see all the different ones. Here's Bitcoins, right? So Bitcoins, we just had another week. This is a week, right? I believe so. Yeah, the daily. Okay, so let's go to the weekly. We just finished up the week with a red week. So minor outflows for Bitcoin last week. You can see there. But on the daily, yesterday's outflows were red. So outflows but on Friday, I believe this was, you did have positive inflows. All right, so that's Bitcoin. For Ethereum, for yesterday, we actually had positive inflows for the ETFs across the board. And then on the last week, we actually had inflows for Ethereum for the whole week. Again, very small numbers here, as the market kind of figures out which way it wants to go. For XRP, things are looking very good here. I'm not going to zoom in. Weekly, also looking very good. Solana has had a couple of days now of outflows, but I mean, this is what, 20 plus days that have been mostly green. Very good to see there from Solana, and it hasn't had a net outflow week yet. So good to see there. And then we'll skip Dogecoin and just go straight to Chainlink. Chainlink looking pretty good. I don't think it's had a full week of inflows or outflows, but there you go. Things looking pretty good on the ETF front. But as you can see, like it's not very decisive. The movements are very non-committal by folks who are trading or investing into the ETF. So something's got to change. There's got to be some kind of macro shifting in order to change the current environment for crypto, because right now things are just kind of at a standstill. But the good news is that it's likely that the bottom is in. So as soon as there's a bit of a change, then we should start to see some different dynamics come in. And tomorrow will mark a very big change, right? It'll be a very big change, because we're going to see the Federal Reserve change, do something, right? Maybe they pause, hopefully not, but they're probably going to cut, right? So that's a pretty big macro change, pretty big macro adjustment that I think could start to loosen up the markets and start to create some different dynamics than we've been seeing. And now that Bitcoin's kind of put in a bottom, and a lot of other cryptos have too, it kind of begs a question: what do you do now, right? And the answer is the price probably tests back higher. Where the price ends up stopping, if it's north of 100K or south of 100K, I think is going to determine what happens next, right? Which is, do we come back down for Bitcoin and actually test back lower, maybe go down all the way down to 75, maybe lower, right? So you have to be thinking, and this is very key, listen carefully because this is important. You have to be thinking to yourself, was I too exposed? Did I have too much crypto? Did I have too much Bitcoin? I don't think you can have too much Bitcoin in some sense. But when we test higher and Bitcoin goes back towards 100K, is it maybe in my interest to go ahead and offload some crypto, maybe at break even or at profit, or maybe at maybe a loss that I'm a little more comfortable with for tax loss harvesting purposes? Talk to a tax pro. I'm not a tax pro, but that is something to keep in mind. If you felt like you were too exposed, this could be a time to at least take profit or sell to break even in cryptos that you have lower confidence in. Maybe some meme coins, maybe some small cap or mid cap coins. So just be thinking about that. Don't marry these smaller projects or meme coins. At least I don't. Maybe you could, maybe you should, maybe you don't see it as an investment. You just see it as buying tokens. Some people think about it that way. I'm just here to tell you, don't let the opportunity of price moving back up go by and just take that for granted, because there's a chance that we do end up going back quite a bit lower. You don't want to be mad at yourself for not taking some profits or selling for a small loss when we do go back up. So do I plan on doing that? Yes, I do plan on offloading a bit of crypto just to see kind of which way, which direction we go as we kind of ladder up towards 100K. If I start getting into, if we start getting into 100K, I'm going to probably be looking to take a bit of profit, or uh, maybe even sell for a little bit of a loss some of the cryptos that I have, right? And I'll be keeping in mind, I'll keep you all in the loop of which ones I'm thinking of selling, which ones I'm keeping. Um, but I'll tell you what, Ethereum, Solana, Bitcoin, I am very unlikely to be selling those three names specifically. Chainlink probably won't sell that one either, right? So we'll just have to see. I just think that next year it's going to be dicey, right? We don't know exactly what the Fed is going to do. We're going to find out a lot more tomorrow. But if the Fed comes out and says, hey, look, we're going to cut rates, but we're not going to do QE, then I just don't see a world where money rotates out of AI stocks and into crypto. Money rotates out of gold or silver and into crypto. I just don't know that that's how that's going to work. If they go ahead and start talking about QE and QE schedules and billion-dollar amounts that they're going to start buying out of the bond market, then that's potentially a time to be net buying the dips on crypto. So just thinking about all this, right? And by the way, everything that I've said pretty much in this stream is mostly for investors, crypto investors. If you're a trader, you're thinking very differently from everything I just said. Trading is all over in the VIP chat. Everything I just said is mostly for investors, right? You can think about it in that way. There's investing and there's trading. They are very different. You want to keep your trading account different from your investment account. Daniel Pearson said, what do you think about BRR stock? Owns a lot of Bitcoin and has dipped hard. Yeah, I mean, the digital asset treasury names are very interesting here because some of them are very below NAV. If you know what that means, basically their share price is lower, not the price itself, but the share price is reflecting that the overall market cap of the company is less than, in some cases, less than the Bitcoin holdings, which means you're buying Bitcoin at a discount, right? It's kind of like me saying, hey, I have a Bitcoin, buy shares in Taylor Company, and the shares are priced as if I only have half of a Bitcoin, right? So think about it like that. I think if you have some appetite to take on more risk and you want to kind of think of Bitcoin digital asset treasuries like MicroStrategy, Naka, BRR as leveraged plays on Bitcoin, I think that that's appropriate. However, I'll say these digital asset treasuries are not all made the same, right? There's different corporate structuring. There's different ways that they have preferred versus common stock. And you need to make sure that you understand those things, or at least keep your position size very, very humble, very small. So be very careful with the way that you're investing in those digital asset treasury companies. And I would say, if this is your first bull cycle, if this is the first time that you're investing in crypto, or maybe even doing your own stock picking, I would just say don't worry about the digital asset treasury companies. There's a lot of risk there, and there's a lot of uncertainty, and they're very volatile. You look at XXI today. I really like this company, and I'm continuing to add more of it, but it's very volatile, and I don't think that people understand what it really is. And so don't mess with it, right? For those of you who are already in them and you've done the research, these are pretty awesome opportunities. So that's kind of how I think about them. Juby said, I only hold top quality coins or coins that are already down 80 to 90%. Yeah. Well, look, hey, everybody should do what they think is best with their own portfolio. I'm telling you what I'm doing, and I'm telling you what I'm doing because there's a chance that the Fed does not go into QE in 2026, or they wait till the very end, right? After all, what is quantitative easing? Quantitative easing is a cure for bad stuff that's happening in the economy. Right now, unemployment, while we get some negative prints out, unemployment and inflation are kind of okay, right? It really has to do more with the debt aspect and how the debt to GDP ratio of the United States is crazy. And you also have some other dynamics that the Fed may need to address later in the year, maybe with banking and private credit and things like that. So I don't think they're going to just do QE to do QE. They're going to have a reason for that. There is already a reason, which is that the debt is crazy. But QE is debt, right? So there's a strong argument to say that they're not going to start a quantitative easing program. And so I don't want to be in a bunch of altcoins. Let me say it differently. I would have wanted to take some profit. And when I say take profit on altcoins, I'm not talking about the whole position. I'm not going to sell all AVAX, right? But I might sell a fourth or half of my AVAX position while it's break even, or maybe for a bit of a loss. It just depends. I'd rather be able to come back to the market when prices are depressed and be able to buy there than to write it down, right? We all just rode down this altcoin move when Bitcoin went from 126 to 85 or wherever we are now, or wherever we got to. We're at 90,008 today. But do you want to do that again? Right? We want to learn from our lessons as investors, right? And we are in a bull market. I still believe we're in a bull market, but we're also in an awkward transition time between the 4-year cycle being relevant and it no longer being relevant. So that alone creates an uncertainty dynamic where people who've been investors in crypto have had an easy roadmap to invest in this asset class. The question is that going to continue? And the answer is, we don't know. Most people say no, it's not going to continue. It's not going to be easy. Is it going to go down? Not necessarily. A lot of folks still think that crypto will continue to go up, including myself. But the answer is not clear at what cycle, what is going to be the dominant gravity that moves prices up or down or sideways, right? And so that has to be established. Obviously, the most obvious gravity force is going to be the Fed, right, in the quantitative easing cycle. So if they come out and say, hey, we're going to cut rates, but we're going to wait for an event, for a chaos, for a disease to institute our cure of quantitative easing, then you want to be more risk off. But you want to stay exposed. And I think that's the point that Juby's making, and that I want to make clear is I'm not looking to get out of altcoins. What I'm looking is to de-risk a bit, right? I may have gotten a bit over exuberant buying some of the tops or buying some of the mid movements. And that was the mistake that I can correct as crypto heals into the end of the year and we kind of test higher. I can kind of correct that without losing my exposure to crypto. Eric Wild said, what app do you mess with stocks? Do you guys have one available for us to sign up for? I will keep you posted on that, Eric Wild's good question. What do you think of the BRR? Yeah. Any idea what that means to their existing ETF? Celio, I don't think that that's going to change. What that's going to do is their Ethereum, the BlackRock Ethereum ETF is just going to convert over to staking. Now, if they launch a separate one, then yeah, they're probably going to be massive outflows into the new one, into the staking one. But that's not going to be reflected. Like if you're the last person to sell BlackRock's Ethereum ETF that's non-staking, you'll be fine because it's not ETFs are not supply and demand. The price is just pegged to Ethereum's spot price. So you don't have a whole lot to, there's no risk there. If everybody gets out of that and goes into the staking one, you're fine. However, I think what's probably going to happen, I don't know, I guess I should know, is that the Ethereum BlackRock ETF will just convert and everyone will be submitted into the staking ETF. Again, could potentially be wrong about that, but that's kind of what I am picking up. All right. Dynamite, Daniel, Pearson, Celio, Wesley, Sushi Garden, everybody. Thank you all for joining in. Juby, Eric Wilds. Hope you all have a great rest of your day and happy trading. Adios.